of something wrong, a ghost in the machine. What I didn't know was that this ghost was about to lead me down a rabbit hole of fraud, secret lives, and a revenge plot so elegant it would become my life's masterpiece. Aetherius wasn't a company, it was a cathedral to innovation. Glass towers, silent elevators, a campus with its own zip code. I was proud to work there. My breakthrough came during a routine audit of Project Chimera, a black-budget AI initiative. The numbers were too perfect. Expenses matched revenues to the decimal. In the real world, there's always friction. Here, there was only silence. I built a mirror server, a digital twin of Aetherius's financial core, and began running my own algorithms. That's when I found the first thread. Ouroboros Holdings, a vendor that didn't exist, being paid millions for servers that never shipped. Ouroboros was just the head of the snake. I found more. Scylla Consulting, Charybdis Ltd, all mythical monsters, all ghost companies. The money flowed from Aetherius to them, then to shell corporations in the Bahamas, the Caymans, and finally into a digital void. The pattern was a work of art, a laundering scheme designed by geniuses who thought they were untouchable. The digital signatures approving every transfer belonged to the holy trinity of Aetherius: CEO Mark Roston, COO David Vance, and CFO Robert Sterling, the founders, the gods of the glass fortress. The day the number clicked into place, I felt the world tilt. $53,422,116. That's how much they had stolen. I prepared a report, a weapon of mass destruction wrapped in a PDF. I requested an urgent meeting with the board's audit committee. Instead, I got a summons to Robert Sterling's office. The Wolf of Wall Street, they called him. He didn't look at the report. He looked at me. "Jasmine," he said, smiling, "a woman of your talents, it would be a tragedy to see them wasted." The next morning, my keycard failed. Security escorted me to my new office, a windowless room in the sub-basement next to the hum of the mainframe servers. The message was clear. I was being buried alive with my knowledge. But they made a fatal error. In that concrete tomb, I had unrestricted, raw access to the company's entire digital nervous system. They thought they were silencing me. They were giving me the keys to the kingdom. Anger is a cold fuel. It burns clean and long. I stopped looking for financial crimes and started building biographies of the criminals. I cross-referenced everything. Corporate credit card charges at a boutique hotel in Monaco with private jet manifests, a penthouse in Singapore leased by a shell company, but the utility bills were in David Vance's name. I found them, not as executives, but as men. Mark, the visionary, had a mistress and a love child in Zurich. David, the family man, maintained 3 separate households. Robert, the intellectual, was a degenerate gambler, funneling millions to a Macau casino. They had built their secret lives with stolen bricks. I didn't just stalk their digital shadows, I learned about the women they were betraying. Sarah Roston wasn't just a CEO's wife, she was a former federal prosecutor who had put white-collar criminals behind bars. Rebecca Vance ran a national domestic violence shelter. Catherine Sterling was a celebrated artist. These women were pillars. They had built lives of meaning and substance, while their husbands built lies. My mission was no longer about exposure. It was about restoration. I named it Operation Phoenix. The goal was to burn their corrupt empire to the ground so something new and clean could rise from the ashes. Phase 1, fortify. I placed digital tripwires throughout the system. If anyone touched my mirror server, it would self-destruct and send all data to 3 separate secure locations. Phase 2, weaponize the truth. I didn't just compile evidence. I wove a narrative. For Sarah, the former prosecutor, I built a legal case, airtight and ready for court. For Rebecca, I highlighted the human cost, showing how the stolen money could have funded her shelters for decades. For Catherine, I created a visual map, a digital tapestry of their deception. I couldn't just email them. Their assistants screened everything. I needed a delivery system with a personal touch. I discovered the wives had a private encrypted messaging group they used for planning charity events. I created a digital key, a piece of code that made it look like a message from Catherine's phone had been forwarded to Sarah and Rebecca by mistake. The message was a link. Clicking it would download the entire customized dossier for each of them. I scheduled the delivery for 7 a.m. on a Saturday, the morning of the Aetherius annual gala, the social event of the season. That Saturday, I dressed in black and attended the gala as a guest of a mid-level executive I was dating. I needed to see it happen. The ballroom was a universe of crystal and arrogance. At 7:02 a.m., I saw Sarah Roston check her phone. Her face didn't crumple. It hardened into marble. She made eye contact with Rebecca across the room. A silent signal passed between them. They found Catherine. The three women in $10,000 gowns disappeared into a private lounge. 15 minutes later, they emerged. They didn't leave. They took the stage. The music stopped. Sarah took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice echoing through the silent ballroom. "Thank you for supporting Aetherius. Unfortunately, the corporation you admire is built on a foundation of crime. My husband and his partners have stolen over $50 million. She didn't scream. She presented facts. She invited the press to a press conference the next day. The room erupted. Phones came out. The live stream went viral. I stood in the back, sipping champagne, watching the fortress begin to crack. The wives didn't just talk. They acted. By Monday, they had obtained freezing orders on every asset. They hired a legal dream team known as the Wall Street Executioners. They gave my entire dossier, anonymized, to the SEC, the FBI, and the IRS. The board of Aetherius, terrified of the liability, voted to oust the founders and fully cooperate with the investigation. The stock price collapsed. The empire was in freefall. I was in my basement office when the FBI came. Not for me, for them. I heard the commotion upstairs, the heavy boots, the shouted commands. I watched on security cameras as Mark, David, and Robert were read their rights in the lobby, their hands cuffed behind their backs. They looked small. The gods had fallen. I testified. As a protected, anonymous witness, my voice digitally altered. I explained the scheme, the flow of money, the secret lives. I saw the realization in their eyes. They hadn't been beaten by a rival or the government. They had been outmaneuvered by the accountant they'd thrown in the basement, the one they thought was powerless. The verdict, guilty on all counts. The sentence, 12 to 15 years in a federal prison. As the whistleblower, I was awarded 18% of the SEC recovery, a sum that meant I would never have to work again. But the real profit was watching Sarah, Rebecca, and Catherine use their divorce settlements to start a venture capital firm that exclusively funds companies led by women. They called it Phoenix Ventures. Aetherius Corporation was broken up and sold. The parts that remained were restructured under a new ethical leadership. The glass fortress was dismantled, brick by brick. I now run my own forensic accounting firm. We protect companies from people like the men I helped put away. Sarah, Rebecca, Catherine, and I have a standing monthly dinner reservation. We don't talk about the past. We talk about the future we're building. They thought the game was about profit and loss. They forgot the most important line on any balance sheet: integrity. My revenge wasn't an emotional outburst. It was an audit, a final, comprehensive audit of their lives. And I found them materially misstated, so I issued a correction. If you believe that the most dangerous person in the room is the one who knows where the bodies are buried, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories where justice isn't just served, it's calculated to the last decimal point.